Good day. Thank you for joining us in this mini stream by Santuario de San Antonio Parish. I am Rocky Chan, and with me are members of the Luke 18 community. So Luke 18 is a parish-based youth community, and it's been around for 35 something years. I didn't join way back then, but I, along with my co-host Ria Campos Lopez, have been a part of this community as adult leaders for the better part of a decade, and we're pretty excited to have this series, to have this mini stream, because we have with us 4 members of the recent team, right? So the way this works is our community has these twice, thrice yearly retreats. It's for kids by kids, and each retreat is really led by a group of amazing teenagers and early adults. So they are given the skills to deal with group dynamics, to give talks, to lead share groups. And what we have today is really a snippet of that weekend experience. So we are taking one of the great talks of the weekend, and we're turning it kind of into a roundtable discussion. So moderated by Ria and myself.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Ria. I've been a Luker for more than half my life, I guess, at this point. I joined when I was in high school. I grew up in San Antonio, went through all the youth groups, eventually got married there, got my kids baptized in church as well. And I'm back here now with the Lukers today to share what we do and to share a little bit about who they are and how we like to spread God's word.
Hi everyone, I am Macy Carlos from the 72nd Weekend. I recently joined Luke in 2019 when I was 14 years old.
Hello, my name is Joaquin Parpan. I've been in Luke for about 3 years already. I joined in 2018 for the 71st Weekend when I was 15 years old.
And I'm Mickey Mayorgaso from the 68th Weekend. I joined Luke about 4 years ago, but unlike Macy, I was still 13 at the time.
I'm Emilio Tordesillas, and I'm currently 22 years old. I joined the 61st Weekend back in 2013 when I was, if I'm not mistaken, 15 years old.
So every weekend, or in every prayer meeting, what we do is we have a talk prepared by one of the Lukers, workshopped by one of the adult leaders. So today we're going to share a little bit of one of my favorite talks from the weekend. It's all about gifts and Beatitudes. So every talk that we have starts off with a patron saint. We have a saint's life to pattern after, right? We learn from experiences. And then we use a gospel also to illustrate what we're going to talk about. So let's start with the patron saint of our Gifts and Beatitudes talk. Em, could you start us off?
So the patron saint of our talk is Saint Martin de Porres. Martin was born in Peru as an illegitimate child. He was mixed race in a white community and was looked down on by many people. He eventually found love and devotion to God, but due to the law that prohibited non-whites from joining religious orders, he was not able to serve as an official member. Because of this, he decided to volunteer in the smallest tasks in the monastery. After some years of working in the kitchen, he was granted the privilege of taking the vows as a member of the third order of Saint Dominic by a friar who disregarded the rule on race.
If there is one thing we can learn about the life of Martin de Porres, it is that we can serve God even in the smallest of ways, regardless of where we are. It could be in our homes, our small circle of friends, or even within our faith family. His decision to serve in the monastery through minor tasks, even though he was not able to become an official member of the order in the beginning, shows his love for God has no boundaries. I can relate to this because I use my own interests and talents to serve God. For example, I sing in Vosa in the 6 p.m. Mass. I like to talk to people and make friends, so I am active in Luke 18. And I like to digitally edit and go on social media, so I help in projects for the social media ministry. No matter how small my actions can be, I try my best to offer what I have to God.
In the Gospel of Matthew 5, verse 1 to 10, during the Sermon of the Mount, Jesus teaches us that if we live according to the Beatitudes, we will live a happy Christian life. God promises us that if we remain consistent in acting according to these teachings, we as faithful Catholics will receive great rewards.
They're pretty important to us as Christians, and I'd like to talk a little bit about them because I think you'll realize that you may already see these traits within others and within yourselves. The word beatitude comes from the Latin word beatitudo, which means blessedness. That's a pretty big word to try to explain because it's so hard to define. However, the Latin word itself gives us a clue to help us. Beatitudes. They are attitudes for being. So the first beatitude is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." We define being poor as not having a lot. So when Jesus says poor in spirit, he speaks of humility. No one likes having a mayabang person in the friend group. I got self-anxious about being and achievements compared to my friends. But if I live with this, that I won't ever find happiness. Jesus means that we shouldn't think so highly of ourselves and that we should be selfless. I find it so beautiful how vast and expansive the universe is. And I get to realize just how small we are in the universe, which really puts things into perspective for me. So we have to remember to be humble and thankful for all of God's blessings.
The next beatitude is, "Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted." Now, to mourn does not necessarily refer to crying, but instead it talks about those who acknowledge their wrongdoings whenever they hurt God and feel for it. In reality, whenever we hurt someone, there will eventually come a point when we realize that it was our fault for doing so. Whenever we sin, we hurt God, and when we ask for forgiveness, we recall our actions that hurt Him. There have been a number of moments in my life where I decided to let my pride and ego get the better of me when dealing with others. By doing so, I decided to accept that I was wrong and that I resulted in hurting other people. Eventually, I felt bad for doing what I did, which motivated me to apologize and improve for the better. This is why when we ask God for forgiveness, we have to really be true to it and commit to making sure we do better.
Next is, "Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied." Have you ever hungered for good relationships with your family, friends, or community? Or have you ever hungered to win a sports game or get a good grade on a test? Hunger and thirst is something every person has. When you hunger for something, you are looking for ways to solve your hunger. If we hunger and thirst for righteousness, we are looking for ways to follow God in righteousness. Jesus said that those who have this kind of hunger, will have their appetites filled.
So next, blessed are the merciful, for they shall show mercy. As a Catholic myself, mercy is a word I heard a lot because people preached time and time again that God is merciful, that He sacrificed His only Son for us. But I only really understood what the word meant later on. And I learned that being merciful doesn't just mean to be forgiving. It also means to be compassionate and kind at the same time. To be merciful is a lot of things all at once, and that can be difficult, but it's just a reminder that forgiving isn't always going to be easy. Because with forgiving, it's always important to show sympathy and concern for the people who have wronged you.
The next beatitude is, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land." I don't know about you guys, but when I first thought of the word meek, I imagined a mouse. However, meek does not mean shy or timid or quiet, because if you've read or watched movies, you'll realize that many of the most famous characters are described as being meek, like Sam in The Lord of the Rings, Luke from Star Wars, Belle in Beauty and the Beast, or the March sisters in Little Women. These characters were all loyal to their friends and morals, and they were brave in the face of adversity. So when we stand up for someone who's being picked on, and when we choose not to submit to peer pressure, these are some examples of meekness. Jesus means that when we're meek, we follow God's will for us, even if it's hard. As we go through our daily lives, little moments and decisions that we make are what define who we are and whether or not we're meek. So we have to try to exercise good judgment and make the right choices.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. I sense that many of us see the phrase pure in heart as, well, sort of vague, since it can refer to many things: innocent, all good, or maybe perfect. One of the best characteristics that suits the phrase would be those who live by virtue and have the best intentions to live by them. Service can be applied to many things, especially in a parish community. There are, of course, the small things like going to Mass, being active in parish activities, and offering donations. Now, service is not done in the name of fame or recognition, but simply for the sake of service. It does not matter if no one or not many people notice your acts of goodwill, because in the end, God sees everything. Therefore, everything you do, big or small, counts at the end of the day.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Peacemaker means someone who makes peace, not the DC character that John Cena plays. A peacemaker is someone who reconciles people with God and with each other. Conflict is something that we humans cannot avoid. In the kingdom of God, it is a blessing to bring those who are in conflict together, because it can resolve these disagreements and restore relationships. Blessed are peacemakers who bring peace by helping resolve conflicts. You can bring peace to others, for example, by helping friends who disagree with each other, trying to make your family members who are in disagreement understand each other, or even asking forgiveness from God for your own relationship with Him. Of course, conflict will always be present, but doing your best to be a peacemaker will bring a lot of love, joy, and good relationships in our home, community, and the world.
Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Nowadays, with social media and other platforms, you get to hear so many controversial opinions about various topics from friends and even strangers. And when I was young, it was hard for me to know which opinion was the right one or the wrong one. But growing up, I realized that everything isn't as simple as black and white, because mostly things are pretty gray, meaning that some things can be both good and bad. So with that, I'm glad that even with all the gray things in life, there are still people who understand what's truly right, and they are called the righteous. However, being righteous doesn't grant you luxury, because it comes with persecution. We're all human, so correcting someone when you think they're wrong is normal, but shaming or treating them badly for not doing what you think they should happens way too often. And that is persecution. So I commend and admire the righteous for still doing what they believe is right and still being pure of heart even when persecuted.
Okay, thank you, Mickey, Macy, and Joaquin, for talking about the Beatitudes for us. Rocky, what did you think? What did you learn from the Lukers today?
Well, one of the things that I've always liked was the way that Joaquin described the Beatitudes as the Beatitudes, right? Attitudes for being. One of the things that I've always loved about the Beatitudes is, you have the Old Testament where everything was, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, right? You should not do this, you should not do that. It's sure, it's a good guide for how to live your life, but I always felt that it's not the best way to live your life, right? Sure, if you follow, let's say you have a life where you follow the 10 Commandments to a T, right? But that could also mean that you have a life that doesn't do anything, that doesn't produce anything, that doesn't impact anybody positively in any significant way. I mean, that's really not the kind of life, that's not the kind of life I think that Jesus wants us to live. And for me, the Beatitudes are really a better instruction. It's like your instructions for a good life, not just a life free from sin. So for me, that was really the most that's really always been the most impactful lesson that we always get from the Beatitudes.
Just to share, when I first came across the Beatitudes, I just memorized it. And it didn't have much meaning. It was only in Luke 18 where the talk came in, where we had to learn more about it. And I love how our Lukers really contextualized it. No, the Beatitudes are not just lofty ideas, but as our Lukers have shown us, right? We can do it in our day-to-day life, and I think it's quite challenging. It's a very very high standard. So I'd like to ask the Lukers if maybe there's any of the Beatitudes that you just discussed that you feel like you work on a lot, or there's something more you'd like to work on? Maybe any new thoughts or learnings. So even though we pre-prepare the talks, right? Every time we hear it, we learn something new. So maybe to bring this to a conversation, what we do after in our share groups, us a little bit of what we learned today. So I'm just gonna throw the ball out there and maybe start with, let's go by age today again. Let's start with M. Was there something you learned today, or something with your fellow Luker sharings?
Well, actually, in regards to the beatitude of, sorry, let me just load the page again. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness. I really like the idea that Macy brought up. And if there's one thing that has recently occurred to me, it's that during one sharing of our other youth community, Antioch, out of nowhere, I thought of this beatitude because our talk was about anger, and then we had like a whole discussion about anger. Now, what exactly is anger? Is it something always in the wrong? Is it something always bad, or are there like exceptions to people who get angry? Like, do people get angry also for the right reasons sometimes? And while this discussion was going on, that very beatitude, blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, came into my head. And it made me remember that in the end of the day, you are upset at people for not doing, for not doing their job properly if they hold heavy responsibilities, or if it's done in the name of like justifiable criticism, like what happened to Jesus in the temple, or what happened to a lot of biblical figures when they showed signs of frustration. That behavior could be, considered as an example of righteousness. And I think at this day and age, especially in the society that we live in right now, we could all hunger and thirst for at least the right reasons, and of course the common good.
Hi, okay, so for mine, I think it's blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Because I think now that we're in quarantine, I've been making a lot of mistakes, especially in school, because, no one's really done online classes, or I don't really know a lot of people who have done online classes personally. So I think it was hard for me to get used to it, and it was also a learning experience for me. And I think it was really important for me to own up to my mistakes and say sorry, ask for forgiveness when I made them, especially to professors, because, communication is key. And I think that's something, it's something that's said quite often, but sometimes you don't really do it, or at least for me, yeah. So it's just something that I resonated with, especially this quarantine.
I think the one that I guess comes to mind for me, that I'm able to exemplify thanks to like the experiences in my life, I guess maybe meekness. I'm not really sure, but I think at my core, I think I value things like my family and my friends, and I think loyalty is very important to me, and I always try to be there for the people that I care about in my life. So I think like even though like every single one of us, like we have moments where we exemplify the other Beatitudes, I feel like things like that are less situational and I guess more universal. They're more consistent throughout like every day of your life, and you get to exemplify them more and embody them more. I feel like somethingness can really show who in a relationship or a friendship will go above and beyond to stay in contact with a person or to be there for the person if they need them. I feel like that's something that's important to me, and that's something that I'm very conscious about.
I would choose blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So like what Wuken said, poor in spirit doesn't mean that you're literally poor in spirit, but it speaks of humility. And as a person who plays a competitive sport and is around a lot of people who always try to put themselves on top of me or brag about their achievements, I think there are lots of times where I get tempted to brag about this and that, and it's a lot of like put my pride on the line. It's just that I think one thing I have been practicing ever since I was younger, because my parents would always teach me, is to be humble. And being humble means that doesn't mean that you would have low self-esteem or not consider yourself good, but it means that you remember that you would be nothing without God. So when there are times that I get tempted to brag about myself and say this and that, I remember that all of this wouldn't have happened without God and the blessings that He gave me, such as my family, my friends, and the people who helped me make what I achieved possible.
Okay, thank you for your sharing. So I think that sums up the Beatitudes beautifully. Again, in the Lukers' own words, no. So, as much as we like the formal writing of our Bible, it really is hard to relate. And this is what we try to do in our meetings with the Lukers. We try to bring it down to how we experience it and how we can continue to share God's love by showing all these things. No, Rocky, any thoughts?
I mean, absolutely. No. The great thing, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about our faith is that, especially in the Catholic faith, is that the Catholic faith, it's always portrayed to be this large institution with so many rules, so many traditions, that a lot of people think that our faith is inaccessible. And I personally think that's not true. I mean, definitely from our own faith experience here in Santuario de San Antonio, we have taken strides to make faith accessible to even the youngest, right? We are still very much in tune with our traditions, with our sacraments, with the many aspects of Catholicism that make us Catholics, but we've tried to make the audience as broad as possible, right? And I think 35 years of Luke 18 is enough proof that this works.
Yeah, and I always say it. I learn so much from the Lukers. Every time I workshop and stuff, it's a new learning, and I love listening to them. No, so I hope that everyone viewing is also learning as much. And I'm gonna call them the kids, right? Is learning as much from these kids as I am. I love working with them. So thank you guys for sharing the Beatitudes. So now, in the structure of this talk, so we've covered our patron saint, right, Saint Martin. We've gone through the Beatitudes that were mentioned in the Sermon of the Mount for our gospel reading. And then to further incorporate this, and like Rocky mentioned, to make this more relatable and accessible, we go into maybe simpler examples of how we can break down these Beatitudes. And for these Beatitudes, for us to help live our lives in different situations, right? We have been sent the fruits and gifts of the Holy Spirit to help us. And so we are all blessed with these gifts and fruits, and the Lukers are gonna walk you guys through them also. Again, to make it more, I guess, real, not to us. How the way we ask them to share it is to share about what they think that fruit and gifts mean, or what they mean as a definition, but in the same way, they share how they personally experienced it through one of the Lukers or someone in the community. So I'd like to open the floor again to them, and they're gonna go through all the gifts and fruits. And we're gonna see again. And then what we did earlier before that was the less structured version, or like a share group, which is an informal sharing. So now we're going back to the structured way. Okay, so for the first, we're gonna ask Joaquin to kick us off again.
So, the gift of love or charity, it means that we love God so much that this overflows into our love for everyone. And while love can be expressed in many different ways, I think it's our fellow members, Kiara and Kat, were good examples of working with them over the weekend. I learned that Kiara's friends think of her as an emotional anchor who helps to provide unity among her friends during challenging times. And at our meetings, she was very outgoing, which helped to foster a strong dynamic among us as we prepared this weekend for the incoming Lukers. And similarly, Kat, who was also another veteran member of the community, she was a similarly uplifting presence for us because she had many years of experience in the community to help give us wisdom and advice. And she helped to show charity to the rest of the team by sharing her knowledge with us during our preparations to help make us become more confident to conduct the weekend for the new Lukers, especially because it was the first weekend that was ever done remotely online.
Knowledge is a gift that allows us to understand our faith and see circumstances in our life how God sees them. As humans, we know that our faith in God is limited. Oh, sorry, can I do that again? Knowledge is a gift that allows us to understand our faith and see the circumstances in our life and how God sees them. As humans, what we know about our faith and God is limited, but knowledge allows us to understand God and life the best way we can. It helps distinguish the goodness of God from the evilness and sin of the devil. Sharky from team loves to share his knowledge to our team, even to the new Lukers from last weekend. He actively shares his insights on our talks and always includes them in prayers. Even though some readings or lessons may be hard to interpret, Sharky is always trying to dig deeper and helping us understand our faith the best we can.
And then we have wisdom. Now, wisdom refers to knowing how great God is, which makes it deeper than knowledge. Whenever I think of someone who is wise, I think of my role models. For example, my parents, who ever since the beginning of my life have been directing me to be the best version of myself. The role models, especially older people, tend to be great examples of wisdom. Wisdom could also be expressed by literally anyone. Even the smallest circles and barcadas of people from the same age group can have great examples of people who have wisdom. If I were to consider our team, one person who has the gift of wisdom would be Justina. She tends to point out what needs to be said most of the time. She is very friendly, but at the same time honest when talking about anything. Gabby also has the gift of wisdom because of his ability to offer feedback and constructive criticism, as seen in our run-throughs in preparation for the weekend.
Understanding is knowing and thinking about why things happen, and accepting that when you can't find the reason why, sometimes we just don't get to know why. And that's for God to know, and that leaves us to continue to just keep trusting Him and His will. So it's seeing things from different perspectives and realizing possible intentions or wanted outcomes of different people. And understanding is knowing when not to sin and when to act when seeing others sin. So it's accepting that we're all given free will by God, who still has a plan for us at the end of the day. So understanding can come easily to some, but a lot of people fail to realize that all situations involve other factors, which makes it quite difficult to understand sometimes. So when someone is stuck in a bad situation, they'll likely only care about their own thoughts and opinions and forget to even try to understand others' perspectives. So that in turn leads to resenting or blaming others, even God. So for me, when I struggled to understand something, I just look back at the times when I went to confession, because I would remember the priest always telling me right after that God understands me and God forgives me. And I remember how I felt back then, and it was always so comforting to hear those words. So to try to understand other people can mean the world to them, and to understand yourself can mean so much for you too. Can mean so much for you too. Personally, I think our TLs, Julian and Zoe, showed this gift because with everything being online during the weekend, I think they did a pretty good job of understanding if we were late to meetings, had bad Wi-Fi, lagged out, and etc. I also think that Tita Rocky was very understanding during the weekend and during the preparation.
The next gift, joy, focuses on giving thanks for the overall circumstances of your life. The country you live in, who you are as a person, your health, your school, opportunities that are presented to you, like joining a sports team, or for the incoming Lukers, joining the weekend, and all the other things in your life that bring you joy. So it's so fantastic that we're able to be given life, let alone be born at the specific place and time with the blessings that we have. And on our team, I thought that Julia was a great example of joy, not just because she's always so optimistic, but because as one of our team leaders, she really excelled at making the most of her position. She was a driving force behind our preparations, keeping the rest of us on track, and leading us through each step and rallying us all to contribute and to enjoy.
The next one is patience. The gift of patience refers to the waiting grace, and it allows us to live in this demanding world and still have love, joy, and peace. It's harder than it actually sounds because patiently waiting takes a lot of self-control and understanding. God is constantly patient with us, so we should follow Him. Not only should we be patient with others, but we should also be patient with God's plan for us, no matter how uncertain or far it may seem.
And then there is counsel. Counsel is the ability to help others to see God's will. This is exactly what we are here for as a community. This is done through reaching out to others who may be going through rough times. When it comes to counsel, I think of our two TLs, Enzo and Julia, who have been working to make the online weekend the best it could ever be. By doing so, they would constantly remind the team to fulfill their tasks in preparation for the weekend in order for it to go accordingly as planned or even better. Kiara also has this gift. She was able to help a friend of hers who lost a loved one by checking on her and keeping her company. She made the best of efforts to make sure that her friend had someone to lean on. And that phrase, someone to lean on, is one of the best ways to express counsel, because that's exactly what God does for us by sending others who could reach out to us whenever we feel broken.
Gentleness is persevering and being kind even when it's hard. So when I'm faced with people I don't get along with, it would be so effortless to just look at them and think, oh, I hate them, and I could rant about it with my friends for who knows how long. But growing up, I understood that everyone goes through something and everyone grew up differently. So some things people say or do might be normal within their family and friends, but for mine, it's rude or unlikable. So to have gentleness is to simply care and respect others by showing them through actions and words, and still being kind towards them, especially when they aren't there. So I think out of everyone from TMM shows this, because even being the eldest, he showed gentleness to the younger Lukers, and he really showed that he respected them, and all their opinions.
Peace is usually exemplified by people who are their thoughts, helping them to get a better understanding of what's troubling them and helping others around them to achieve that same peace too. On our team, people like Enzo, our team leader, and Gabby are like this at our meetings. Enzo was really helpful to everyone on the team by calmly explaining things whenever we had a question, and running us through our goals, and overall just being an instrumental and inspiring force for the rest of us. Gabby also gave a similar soothing presence at our meetings because even though it was his first time teaming, he stepped up to bat with everything that was asked of him, confidently and eagerly answering the call to team and taking the initiative to do everything out of his comfort zone and taking every opportunity that was presented to him.
Piety is also known as the gift of reverence. The gift of piety makes us recognize and respect the church. It draws us to devote ourselves in religious practices for God, to pray, serve, and sacrifice, even though we don't feel like doing so. Justina is someone who shows piety by devoting herself in religious practices and serving God. She, aside from Sunday Mass, she also serves in Thursday Mass and other parish events. Justina also takes her Lent and team sacrifices seriously.
Fortitude is what we achieve if we choose to do the right thing, even though no one else is up for it. Fortitude revolves around courage and work towards the good for the sake of our community. As long as we choose to do what is right for the sake of not only ourselves, but for others, we are practicing fortitude. I can think of Mickey as an example when it comes to fortitude because she is one of the people who happens to be very sociable and down to earth here in our Luke community. When we didn't know each other yet, there would be dead air in meetings. She would always find a way to entertain us all by being charismatic and down to earth. She has the skill of making things flow within conversations while at the same time being able to apply them to the important things.
Goodness is being able to see and focus on the good, even when it's the harder choice. So with so much bad in the world, it's no wonder that some people are pessimistic. So to see the good in a situation or in someone can be difficult with that mindset. A person can have a great day until one bad thing ruins it for them. But the same can be said for a person who has a bad day, but one thing can also make it a great one for them. So it's easy to see the bad, but it's also easy to see the good. So goodness is choosing to see the good, looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. Even an overused phrase like this is overused because it's true. And it's also believing and choosing to see good in others, even when they don't believe in themselves. So I think out of everyone, Macy showed me goodness because she's always very calm and positive. And really, I've never heard her talk about any situation in a negative way.
Kindness means that you're genuinely kind to everyone around you, which doesn't just mean the people that we love. So it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but it's very much easier said than done. Treating everyone the same and treating everyone the way you want to be treated becomes harder to maintain when you factor in different personalities, awkwardness, weird situations, and moods. Will you go out of your way to help a stranger? Like being inconvenienced at the time. Things despite doing summer class by joining the team, staying up late to help me finish the weekend, and outside of the weekend, even joining other parish responsibilities like being the head of a team for a community fundraising event overall. So it's little things like that where she goes above and beyond in her kindness for everyone, even complete strangers and people that she doesn't know very well, where she just goes to show her love for others. And it's those kinds of things that help to show that she's really an embodiment of kindness and an example for everyone else to act.
Next one up is fear of the Lord. When we say fear of the Lord, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are scared of the Lord, but more fearing the Lord in awe and respect for how amazing He is. Being aware of how great and blessed the Lord is a gift because you recognize how to follow Him in goodness, peace, and love. Wakin and Em are people who have the gift of fear of the Lord. They recognize how great the Lord is, so they are always looking for ways to serve Him in goodness, peace, and love. Despite being busy with school or college, Em and Wakin are always volunteering in Luke in the parish. Em sometimes takes time off from school to talk to Lukers and ask how they are. And Wakin recently joined our team in the recent fundraising tournament despite his busy schedule to bike, run, and pray with our team. Em and Wakin don't only serve the Lord in respect, but also people around them.
So the next gift, faithfulness, means having full trust in the Lord. So that means that you've been able to get over any doubts or fears that you may have had about God's plan, and that you're ready to fully commit to whatever you're asked to do because you have complete faith in Him. Someone who's faithful is always proactive and efficient and a very reliable friend. You have full trust in God's plan because you've fully thought out everything in your mind. I think that M is someone that I would consider to be a personification of this. He's very diligent and has a strong sense of duty in everything he does, and his faith is no different. He took his teaming responsibilities very seriously, and as my talk partner for the weekend, I worked closely with him to really reflect on how to fully explain the concepts that we would talk about. I can see how deep his passion and faith goes, and this is because he trusts in God's plan.
So, self-control is knowing that you can choose to control what you can for the sake of goodness. So, mainly it's wanting to be a better person and acting on it. So, in terms of habits, it's finding ways to make good habits like studying noticeable and making bad habits like smoking invisible. It's controlling what you can be, like in the environment you make or surround yourself with, especially in complicated and difficult situations. So I think out of everyone on team, Enzo showed this trait because I saw that he was really consistent with updating team and GCs, and he even consistently works out and makes sure he eats healthy too.
Okay, thanks everyone for sharing the gifts and fruits. It's so nice to see them personified, and I think for our audience, you're very lucky that you got to see the ones who they talked about on screen. This is not to say that our community is not that big. It's just that for the weekend, we only have about 12 to 14 Lukers who are actively facilitating the retreat. So when we do this exercise, we ask the teamers to only name a few Lukers so that the new candidates can easily see the gifts and fruits right away. No, so that's how that is. But if we had the time, we could probably go through each and every Luker in the community and name definitely at least 3, 4, 5, or maybe even more of those gifts. No, Rocky and I had the time. We could also go through this whole list with the Lukers we have with us today. So it's very nice to hear all these things and really to see it in action. And what makes, I think, the community great or these talks great is the chance that we have to actively tell people in our community, hey guys, I see this gift in you. It's so great. Thank you for helping me. And our goal is really to help inspire our Lukers to say, hey, I have that gift. Someone sees it in me. God loves me so much, and that hopefully inspires them to do more. No, Rocky? Any thoughts on these, I guess, affirmations and how the way we share it in our community?
Absolutely. No. So one really great aspect of the way we do things in Luke 18 is the whole concept of affirmations. So when you affirm somebody, at least in the context of a Luke 18 or Youth of San Antonio experience, it's not just buttering them up or just throwing out empty compliments. It's the way we actually describe affirmations is seeing Jesus in that other person. That's why we use things like the gifts and the fruits of the Holy Spirit, because these are the qualities that are Christ-like. And these are the qualities that we want our Lukers to be more sensitive towards finding in other people. Not just the Lukers, but hopefully, within through the other people that they meet in their day to day, right? And I think especially now it's so important because we don't have a lot of contact with a lot of other people, and I think it's even more vital that we are able to cherish and we're able to appreciate the people that we do have contact with, right? And on the flip side, as a person, normally it's difficult for you to accept a compliment. It's very difficult for you to, you also receive compliments in the way that, oh, this person's just trying to be nice, etc., etc. But when you are affirmed, again, in this context, you are able to discover your own inner Jesus. And I think that's so important in the spiritual maturity of the kids.
Yeah. It's being able to know how, and I guess this might go into looking back, going back to my teen days. It's hard to be a teenager, right? And I love that these Lukers help encourage each other to build each other up, rather than go the opposite, where it's very easy to have that negative lens and just say, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I can't do this. And I'll be honest, as an adult, I still feel that way a lot of the time. So it's so important that we have a community like this wherein your fellow Lukers will empower you, to remind you how great you are, how loved you are, and that they just have your backs in general, right? I think you can see it from these kids. And it wasn't that planned. So you can see when they were affirming each other, it's like, oh, it's me again. And it's, we might have heard it in the last talk, which was a few months ago, but it's always good to be reminded. And it's really great. So I really always appreciate you guys opening up and sharing a little bit about yourselves. So thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say? So we have planned closing, right? But at this point in time, is there anything that you guys would like to say, share group manners style, about what you learned or what struck you again in this conversation?
As I said a while ago, patience refers to the waiting grace, and even though it's hard, it's really hard to do it because you need a lot of self-control and understanding. And one person who I think embodies the gift of patience is Mickey. She's always there to listen to people and try to understand them, even though there's someone who is hard to understand or someone that you don't actually like. So Mickey's always there to hear you out, and she always takes her time to understand you. And she's even with me, even though I have to talk about something that's bothering me or I just want to catch up, Mickey's always there to talk with me and be patient with how much I talk. So thank you.
Macy! I'm so kilig. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, always how our meetings end, with so much love and joy, and why we're here. And we're very happy again that we get to share that with the bigger audience of our church community today. I think something that might have been missing in the pandemic, again, is seeing us in church, right? Our Lukers always come full of joy and energy on Saturdays, right? They love to sing their hearts out in Mass. They participate when they can. Occasionally, Father will let us dance and sing in the middle of church, right? And we look forward to doing that also. But okay, see, we're just gonna go off script again completely. Rocky, any other thing that you'd like to share? Because the kids have prepared closing remarks. So
No, yeah. I think I would rather just hear the Lukers, and with their closing remarks and their synthesis of what they've learned, not only from this experience, but maybe from their time in Luke.
Yeah. Okay. It blew me away every time. I'm always so thankful for them. Okay, Joaquin.
I think you can see how the gifts, the fruits, as well as the Beatitudes themselves are all interconnected. Each Beatitude somehow correlates with a gift and a fruit, which shows that there are many ways in which we can apply them in our everyday lives. Going back to the example of Saint Martin de Porres, who was at first not able to join a religious order due to the rules of skin color, we can relate to him by applying the gifts, fruits, and Beatitudes, even in the smallest of ways. Particular examples would be in our homes, in our families, and most especially within our faith family. The Beatitudes, gifts, and fruits are all traits that can already be found within ourselves. So one of the things that I've always loved about Luke ever since I joined was the inclusivity and the warmth and generosity of each of its members that I think translates into the ethos of the entire community as a whole. I was 15 when I joined. Even though it was only 3 years ago, it feels like a long time already because the pandemic sort of distorts time that way. And I had heard about it because my family in the previous generation was very involved with that community. My Tita Franco and my Ninang Angelica on my mom's side were both active members when they were my age. And my dad was a member of his Antioch group in another parish closer to where he was living. All had stories from their own experiences at Luke and at Antioch, basically as a part of the youth communities in their parishes. And they had already told me all these great things that got me excited to join. So I actually asked my parents if they would let me sign up. So I know that like a lot of, I guess it was sort of the opposite, where maybe usually when we share with each other during the weekend that we join, why we joined the weekend, some people they don't really want to join and their parents make them join. I was sort of the opposite, because I had heard that it was a great place to make friends, and as an already active member of my parish as an altar boy, I thought it would be, like what Tita Ria said, a more accessible way for me to engage with my parish, where being an altar boy, there's all this formality and all these rules that you have to follow, and being a part of a youth group, it's basically like just being part of a barkada where the one thing that you have in common is your faith. So in that sense, it's always been a safe space to talk about our beliefs and the things that are important to us, things that you might not even be able to talk about with your classmates or other close friends because they might not have that same thing in common with you. And from the get-go all the way up until now, even with new members who I've seen are willing, just as willing as the people who welcomed me when I joined. I think it's that spirit that really drives the community, especially through hardships like the pandemic, that helps us to stay afloat and to remain connected, because we all love each other and we all exemplify things like these gifts and these fruits and Beatitudes. And I think it's a great place for us to grow as teenagers, and as we progress into adulthood. I think it's just such a fun aspect of my growing up experience that I would definitely recommend it to anyone who is of the same age. I was 15 when I joined, and I was halfway through. But there are kids now who are joining who are super young, not in a bad way, but just like I think that's like if you're of that age, like when you're just about to be a teenager, I would say just go right ahead and don't wait, to really make the most of having Luke be an integral part of your teenage years, for as long as possible. So for the most recent weekend, for example, like my brother, we encouraged him to join, and he just entered high school, so he actually joined at a younger age than I did. So I feel like Luke, as it was with my tito and my ninang encouraging me to join, it's really just a great sort of tradition for members of San Antonio and for any other parish that has a youth group, like being a part of a group like this and making all these incredible friends that will stay with you for the rest of your life. And one of the great things that I've always loved about it, aside from having people like M practice improvisational acting skills, these scenarios that we invent to help prepare us for the weekend, we sort of take on personas of people to sort of test our situational awareness and preparedness for the weekend. And many times Tito Rocky prepares us to have people, to welcome them into the community who may not even share our faith. And it's things like that where we promote tolerance and patience and love for anyone, no matter what their belief system is. It's like, and that's really, I think, the core of our community, being able to welcome people in who may not even, well, of course it helps having the same religion as us, but being prepared for things like that, even at the most extreme, and always just being there no matter what. That's really why I would, once again, recommend it to anyone. I think it's a great community for teenagers and for kids growing up.
No matter how small it may be, whether it is taking your time to play with your younger sibling, talking to a friend in need, or volunteering to serve in the community, these gifts that you display are already found inside of you. Your gifts make you you, and using those gifts to serve others and God is like devoting yourself to the Lord. Since I was around 9 years old, I've already been really active in the parish. I was an altar server, and I also serve, as I said before, I also sang in the 6 p.m. Mass with my titas in Bosa. I was around 14 when my ninang, Bevels Carlos, who was an active Luker when she was my age, encouraged me to join Luke. I wasn't too excited about it because I thought that Luke would be full of lectures and praying. But to my surprise, I was welcomed by a lot of warm and open people. And aside from prayer, we did many activities and reflection, which I really enjoyed. It was through the Lukers that helped make me realize what my gifts and Beatitudes are. And some of these people are my closest friends now, and I consider Luke as my second family. The reason why I actually wasn't too excited, one of the reasons why I wasn't too excited in joining was that it was a 2-day and 3-night retreat, and my family at the time was going on a family trip to Japan. So joining Luke meant that I would stay behind in the Philippines while they all vacationed in Japan. So, but looking back at it, I would definitely choose Luke over the Japan trip because, of course, Japan would be fun, but the people and the experience I had in Luke was definitely once in a lifetime, and it's definitely more worth it because I made friends who I consider would be my friends for life. So now, as a teamer and a person who is giving this talk, I want to help others realize what their gifts and beatitudes are. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, if there's something I could add, it's that, sorry, it was at the tip of my tongue, but okay. Now I remember. So I guess one of the best ways in how the gifts and Beatitudes impacted my life would be through the community itself. I remember the very day I walked into the doors of the community back when I was still in early high school, and my weekend experience exposed me to some of the most welcoming people I've ever met in my life. And I saw almost every gift and beatitude in all the lovely faces I met, especially those who I am still close to today. Though my life in the community has had a fair share of ups and downs, I decided to always let the good times that the community had to offer count and hope that others can experience them too. If there is one thing that this recent weekend taught me, it's that, no matter how long it's been since the last time I was active in the community before the weekend, and, being asked to team, even though I'm pretty old, well, at least in Luker numbers, being asked to team was just something I couldn't say no to. That decision alone led to my greatest online experience during this pandemic, and I really mean that. The weekend brought me back to one of the happiest moments in my life and reminded me that, it reminded me of all the people I met in the community who have always meant a lot to me. I was happy not only because of the great memories and fun activities we had, but because of the chance to pass it on to others. There are many young people out there who deserve the chance to be part of a community that promotes love, a safe space with people who are willing to hear out one another, and a group of friends that will always do what they can to see the good out of anyone or any situation. I may no longer be the same kid from the first year, I joined Luke, but I will always be open to promoting this experience to others, especially those who may need it most. So once again, I just want to say thank you very much, everyone. You people always mean a lot to me, and I will always do what I can to remember all the great memories we've had in this community, no matter how long it's been.
Okay, so I love Luke because of what this community gave me and what this community taught me. It gave me friends, opportunities, events, and a whole other family. And most importantly, it gave me back my faith in God. Because before Luke, I was never exactly religious. I would pray from time to time, but that was it. Like, I followed my parents and my teachers when they said, go to Mass, and I would confess when needed to. But with Luke, I learned to love and appreciate my faith even more. And I also learned so much other things, like how to love others better. And that didn't just include my family or friends, but that also included strangers. And after I teamed, it was also easier for me to notice when someone was feeling out of place. And because I teamed, I knew how to make them feel welcomed and included. I think overall, I'm most grateful to Luke for having given me such a broad perspective on living and life. And now it's easy to see things in a different perspective when needed to. So I would definitely recommend anyone of age to go to Luke if they can. And because it's a community you'll grow to love and appreciate. Because it's a community you'll grow to love and appreciate because of everything it has to offer and everything that you'll get to offer to others after it. So joining Luke is like being welcomed into a family. And you know what Lilo said? Ohana means family, and family means nobody gets left behind. So if you want to be part of another family, please join Luke 18. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. You always make me want to cry all the time. I have to say,
Thanks, guys.
everything that Em, Joaquin, Macy, and Mickey shared today is actually probably the reason why Rocky and I are still around after all these years. And again, we'd like to also say thank you to the rest of our community. We're much more than this, no? We have our fellow adult leaders, our other Lukers. So who you met today were some members of the team who helped facilitate the weekend. But we have a bigger group of other Lukers who we call our SS, our silent servers, who do all the other things behind the scenes, from praying for our new Lukers, fixing the rosaries, fixing the activities, and making sure the weekend goes very well. And on that note, Rocky, I guess we'd like to invite everyone to join our next weekend this year, no?
Yes. So we actually just finished our first. So the 74th Luke 18 weekend was a few months ago. And it was our first fully online virtual weekend. And given the way things are in our country, it looks like our next weekend will be fully virtual as well. It's a different experience from a live weekend. I don't think it's a diminished experience. It's just different. And we have added, or we've taken a lot of the lessons we've learned from the first weekend, and hopefully we'll be applying it to the next weekend. And I think like I said earlier, all the more now we just need connection, right? And what better place to do it than in a parish-based youth community? So please stay tuned. We will be making announcements, in all of the parish channels as to when the next weekend will be. I will also be giving out my contact information and that of Tita Ria and my wife Yan Chan. So yeah, and I really do look forward to seeing your kids or you guys if if part of the audience is of Luke age. So I really just want to thank Anne, Macy, Mickey, and Joaquin for all of the work they put in for today, and not just for today, but for the team and for just being a part of the community all these years. I think with the exception of Macy, but she's also getting up there. With the exception of Macy, Mickey, and Joaquin are already in college or about to start college.
There are graduates already.
I know, and depending on when you watch this, Joaquin might actually not even be here anymore. So Joaquin is actually on his way to college in Canada. So this is, I guess, his last official Luke activity. And I really want to wish him the best of luck and bon voyage and good luck in college. We will miss you. Hopefully we get to see you when you come back to Manila to visit. And with that, thank you, Tita Ria. Thank you for being my co-host, or thank you for letting me be your co-host for today's mini stream.
So much. Thank you to the San Antonio Parish community for all the support that you give us and have given us through the years. We're very proud members of the San Antonio family, and we look forward to being more active as well. I don't know online, but I hope you guys enjoyed listening to our Lukers and you learned a lot from them. I know I always learn every time I listen to them. And as we always say, I think is our mission. Okay, guys, we didn't actually state our mission today. So what's our mission as Lukers?
To spread God's love.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Stay safe.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Lukers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.